In this fast-moving world in which we live, being first is very important, especially when it comes to the internet. Whether you're the first person to post a comment under a YouTube video, the first person to review a phone or take it apart or even blend it, first carries a lot of weight. I can't keep up with first sometimes because I'm just one guy. I'm not a gadget blog full of a team of writers, so I'll quite often buy something with the intention of making a video about it, but by the time I get around to it, I'm no longer first. It's old news. I'm behind the curve. I'm on the blunt edge of tech. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to show something that isn't new. It's been out about a year. You can still buy it. In fact, there's a newer version than the one I'm going to show you, but I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to talk about the product itself and the whole product category because I want to go a little bit more in depth on the whole idea behind this one and whether or not it actually fulfills a need or it's just a cool piece of tech. I'm going to show you the thing that's in my pocket, which is a 120-inch television. Well, kind of. It's a Sony MP-CL1 laser projector. Let's get on with it. The laser pico technology used in the Sony projector wasn't invented by Sony. It comes from a company called Microvision, and for quite a few years they tried to market their own projectors that use this. But with them not being a very large company, they didn't have an awful lot of success. So they turned to the idea of partnering up with larger companies who could then license the technology, and one of these companies happens to be Sony. The big attraction behind using laser technology is that it doesn't require focusing, and that's particularly sensible for a little device like this. You can just pull it out of a pocket, point it at a wall or a white surface, and it will be in focus. No need to adjust a little focus wheel. I think that's one of the things that attracted Sony to it, as well as the fact that Microvision had just come out with their new HD version of their Pico P engine, which is a 1920 by 720 resolution, which is a bit of an unusual resolution, but basically it's HD. And that's a suitable resolution for blowing up on a nice large screen, up to about 120 inches according to the back of the box. There's a few specifications on the screen now. If you want to read through these, I suggest you press pause, but for me the most important one is the battery life. Apparently, because this device runs on lasers, it doesn't use as much power and therefore is able to run for 2 hours on one charge. And that stat is all the more impressive when you look at the size of the thing, because it's not much larger than your average mobile phone. There's the instruction booklet, and below that we've got a USB A2 micro B lead for charging it. We've got a mini to full-size HDMI adapter. And then there's also a little plastic leg inside the box there, which is used as a stand, and that can be used in a couple of different ways on the projector. You could have it on the front and point it up just like at an angle, or if you wanted you could put it on the bottom of it and point the thing up towards a ceiling, for example. The projector itself feels like the kind of quality device that you expect to get from Sony. It's got a decent weight, so it's not too heavy though, but it is solid. The centre part is made out of metal, the ends are made out of plastic. We've got some LEDs on the top there. On the bottom there's a little speaker. There's also rubber feet at either end, or rubber strips to stop it moving around. On the back, not an awful lot to see there, but on the front, that's where the images come out of. That lens there, of course. There's no lens cap on this one, which is maybe a bit of an omission, but I'll mention something about that in a moment. Nothing to see on that side. On this side, from the left to the right, we've got a little lanyard hole and a USB port for charging it, power switch, volume control up and down, as well as select and choose various things in the menus. Mini HDMI, headphone out, and a USB out. Now that USB out would be used for charging other devices. You can use this as a battery pack if you want to charge your phone with. An expensive way to do that, maybe if you're carrying it around in your pocket as a last ditch thing to charge your phone up, could come in handy at some point. Now this projector doesn't have any kind of built-in media player capabilities. You need to connect a device up to it if you want it to show something. So that device either has to send its video out over HDMI or is able to transmit it over Wi-Fi using the appropriate protocols, and that uses 802.11a, b, g or n. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the projector I'm showing you is the MP-CL1, which has already been superseded by the MP-CL1A. That's the one you'll buy if you go in a shop now and get one of these. So what are the differences? Well, First off, you can get the new model in black or gold. It also comes with a different kind of stand, which twists around and covers the lens when it's not in use, so that's sensible, and you get a nice little carrying pouch with it as well. Now, I'm able to buy that stand separately, so I'm not missing out too much there, but one thing I am missing out on is the fact that my projector has an HDMI mini port on this side, which is a bit inconvenient. I'm using adapters or different cables for it and things, whereas the newer version, the MP-CL1A, has a full-size HDMI port on it, which is much more sensible, and you wonder why they didn't do that in the first place. Perhaps the best feature of the new model, though, is the fact it has Bluetooth audio out. Mine doesn't, and that means if I want to attach a speaker to it, I'm doing it through the headphone port, whereas on the new one you can send your audio off to a separate Bluetooth speaker, which is very convenient. So overall then, the new model offers better value for money than the old one, but of course look at the top right of the screen there, it still costs $399, so this is not a cheap device. Now, comparing the specification sheets between the two projectors reveals no other differences other than perhaps in the area of brightness, although I do think they're probably both identical. The reason is they've got different numbers in there for the equivalent brightness, but they both have the same average brightness of 32 lumens. So I think they've just adjusted this sums a little bit, but the newer model apparently has an equivalent brightness of 40 lumens because, of course, lasers and bulbs work differently, so that's why they've got an equivalent, whereas the old one said 37. But regardless, whether it's 37 or whether it's 40, that's not very bright. Let's see how that works out in the real world. I don't know if you can make this out, but behind me here I've got a video being projected on this screen, and the reason you can't really see it is because there's a lot of light in this room, and it's very important if you get a projector that you're able to control the environment that you're using, and by control I mean completely eliminate all light. You see, a projector obviously can't send black to a screen. What it does when it wants to display something that is black, it doesn't send any light. So the brightness of the room is what affects the black level. So if you can see the difference between that and that in a room, then the room is too bright to display a proper black colour. So yeah, very important to get rid of all light in a room. You'll see projectors advertise, these ones with high brightness bulbs, saying that they can be used in rooms with ambient light. And yes, you can use them, but you're never going to get that proper black level unless you get rid of all the light in the room. Right, so it's time to see how this projector performs under the proper conditions. So let's turn out the lights. The images that are being displayed on the screen here are some of the ones I've shot for a previous video on the Mobius camera, and they're coming from YouTube. It's being streamed through my phone down the HDMI lead, which is attached up to the projector. The projection screen is 80 inches and the image is looking pretty nice and sharp at that size, but as soon as you turn on the lights, you immediately ruin it. So definitely you need to use this one in a nice dark environment. Now, whilst the projector does have a built-in speaker, if you can, try and use anything else because it is very weedy. Now, I've nearly got through the whole video and forgot to mention anything about the image quality, which kind of says something about the image quality in a way. The fact that it doesn't stand out in a manner which makes me want to criticise it or point out any of its failings. I mean, it's only 720p, but that's fine if you watch it at a certain size. I wouldn't really want to watch it at this full 80-inch size. It does tend to get a little bit soft, although in the past I've had a home cinema projector that was 720p and I was watching that at 100 inches across for quite a few years, but this one a little bit softer than that. I think it's better if you restrict it down to image sizes of say 50-60 inches or so, but even so, that's a very good size image from something that you can fit inside your pocket. And I should mention that the projector does emit a bit of a whine. I haven't noticed it in operation, but if you put it right up to your ear, or in this case right up to the camera's microphone, you can hear it. So when I was just demonstrating the projector, here's what I had. I had my phone and the HDMI adapter and an HDMI-A to mini lead. Also, you could, of course, bring along a USB power adapter if you wanted to charge it at the same time you're using it, and therefore you can use it for periods longer than 2 hours. And it would probably be advisable to also pack an external speaker. Now, if you ever come to buy a Pico projector, there's one thing you'll realise pretty quickly, and it's that real life doesn't match up to their adverts. As someone who's carried one of these around for years with the intention of watching TV shows on the wall of a hotel room when I'm on a business trip, I can tell you that very rarely will you find a nice blank white wall. It'll be wallpaper with patterns on it, or there'll be a mirror or a picture or curtains or something in the way, which means you haven't got any space. Rarely will you find a nice blank white space. I found the best way was to put it on the bed, projecting upwards at the ceiling, but even then you're trying to avoid air conditioning ducts and sprinkler systems. So yeah, it's just one of those things, unfortunately. You won't find a white space, or you'll very rarely find one. Now, of course, you could put up a sheet or something and hang it over something, but if you go into that amount of trouble, maybe you should have just brought along a laptop or a tablet and you could have watched your TV shows on that. Rarely do you really need to watch a 100-inch screen in a hotel room. Just as an experiment, have a look around you now, wherever you are, and see if you can see a nice white space that you could project something on. More likely than not, you won't find one. So just bear that in mind. The rest of the world is also like that. So that is kind of one of the biggest limitations of these, finding somewhere that you can use it. If you find yourself in the position that you can't get the perfect angle to project from and you want to square up the image, you can do that. It does have keystone adjustments in the menus, but using those will lose a little bit of the brightness. So if at all possible, you want to try avoid that. Also, the projector itself has a bit of an omission. It doesn't have a tripod mount on the bottom. But you can get around that by buying the optional extra tripod mount, which has a screw on the back or on the bottom, depending on which way you want to orient your projector. But of course, then you've got another thing to take along with you, as well as the little tripod stand. So you can see your bag of bits for this is getting larger all the time. Now, of course, this Sony projector isn't the only mini projector on the market. There's loads of these things out there, but you've got to be careful that you're comparing like for like. Sometimes you'll see things like this, where it says 1080p support, and you think, oh, that's pretty good, 1080p. But look down in the specs, you'll see the output is only 480p. Yes, it'll accept 1080p, it just sends out 480p. So if you are looking for a mini projector, make sure you read through all the small print. So there you go, that was a look at the Sony MP-CL1, a review that's so out of date they've already replaced it with the MP-CL1A. However, still a good product. The thing is, it often feels like it's one of those things that's a solution looking for a problem. I love Pico projectors. I find them fascinating. The fact that you can get a 100-inch screen out of something you can just slide in your pocket. But that is something that not many people need to do. I don't even need to do it. I don't know why I buy these things. But anyway, hopefully that's been of use to you. Show you what a Pico projector does and why you might want to think about not getting one, because quite often the reality of the situation doesn't quite match up to the advertising. However, if you do want to get hold of one of these, well, they only seem to sell them in countries other than the UK. So I'll stick an Amazon link up there for the US, and you can search for it yourself, of course. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.